I thought in this video it would be a good idea to hear it right from U.S. 7th Fleet Vice Admiral Joseph Aucoin. Now, this particular press conference was held about 36 hours after the incident. The ship was already in port, had made it into port under its own power. The crew was off of the ship, and they had had a chance to go in and look around and see what had happened and retrieve all of the electronics and all of the data they would have needed. Now, 3 separate times in this press conference, in a prepared statement, this admiral says, not a Navy spokesman, this is the admiral, commander, that the timing of the incident was 2:20. Even the next day, a commander named Ron Flanders backed this guy up and said, our understanding of the timing of the incident was 2:20. So this is an incredibly difficult one to watch because he speaks very clearly and succinctly. However, they're doing translation for Japanese reporters that are in the crowd, and it just makes it's a lot of Japanese. So I'm going to give you the timings: 1:25, 14:50, and 24:40. I'm going to run through those, but at 24:40, we're going to let it roll a little bit because there's a blurb at the end that I missed up until just a little bit ago, and I want you folks to tell me what you think this guy is wanting to say, and he stops himself. So here we go. Here's the first one.
The Fitzgerald experienced extensive damage and flooding as a result of a collision with a Filipino merchant ship at approximately 02:20 in the morning, 17 June.
There you go. That's the first one. Now, 14:50 again. Here we go. Ready?
But for me to say what happened at 2:20 in the morning yesterday, unknown. So we're going to...
Okay, there you go. And then 24:40. Now pay attention to the end of this, folks.
Okay. Thanks for your comments there. So it was at 2:20 in the morning. We do have watch teams that are awake throughout the night, but a significant part of the crew was sleeping. And as I said before, 2 compartments that house 116 of the crew are in those compartments. And it was a significant impact to the side of the ship. And you can't see most of the damage. The damage is mostly underneath the waterline, and it's a large gash near the keel of the ship. And so the water flow was tremendous. And so there wasn't a lot of time in those spaces that were open to the sea. And as you can see now, the ship is still listing. And so they had to fight the ship to keep it above the surface. So it was traumatic. As to how much warning they had, I don't know. That's going to be found out during the investigation. But it was a significant impact.
Pay attention.
The crew had to fight very hard to keep the ship afloat.
And on the mechanics who crashed itself sideswiped people and calls for help efforts.
Here you go. Watch.
I don't know those kind of things, but it was a significant impact to the side of the ship. And in order to get a puncture like that, I'll just leave that they were hit on the side by the tanker, 29,000-ton merchant freighter.
Is the commander stable enough to answer any questions?
He was hit medevac. His cabin was destroyed. He's lucky to be alive.
I don't know about you, but he said to get that kind of an impact, then he stopped himself. He was almost ready to say something there that would have sent everyone down a different road. Because we're so supposed to believe that this captain of the ACX Crystal was doing everything he could to avoid the collision. That he had slowed his ship down, he had attempted to steer right, he had attempted to contact them with no avail. That's what we're supposed to believe. Now, there's a couple other things here. In that little section right there, he mentioned about how there was damage to machinery room and berthing areas for 116. Now, at 10 minutes, he starts to talk about the injuries.
Also, the Japanese Coast Guard helped us a lot with their helicopters, and they were the first on the scene. We had the medevac, the commanding officer, Commander Bryce Benson, who was medevaced back to the hospital by a JMSDF helicopter.
はい、で私たちがですね、最初の医療輸送を行った時にですね、日本の海保の方がヘリコプターと船が助けてくれました。で、私たちと艦長でありますブライス・ベンソン
See what I mean?
を行いましたのは海上自衛隊のヘリコプターで行われております。
We also had to medevac 2 other sailors with minor injuries, and they were medevaced via helicopter back to the Navy Coast Guard Hospital, and they are still there undergoing treatment.
はい、2回目のですね、その医療輸送という
Okay, so he described it as traumatic, an incredibly hard impact, with seawater rushing in at an incredible rate into an area where a significant portion of the crew was sleeping at the time. Now, and rightfully so, a lot of those young sailors, and maybe some older ones, would sleep in these ships with earbuds in or earphones in because it's close quarters and sometimes you just need the escape. And so this shock, this giant impact happens, and seawater, cold, salt seawater, starts flooding in to this area where everybody's asleep out of nowhere. And 2 minor injuries. They say that 5 were killed almost instantly on impact, and 2 drowned trying to save the guys that were still below in the trapped compartments. And then we had, of course, the captain. And that's it. There was 116 guys and girls down there trying to evacuate that area. And also, we are supposed to believe that at 36 minutes after the collision, this kid tried to WhatsApp his father from below decks. If at 1:30 this happened, of course general quarters would have been sounded. And I'm sure there would have been no Wi-Fi during general quarters. And just think about the logic of this. We've covered this before, but in light of this description from the Admiral, I think we can think about it again. This mass chaos is going on from this impact. You got cold, salt seawater. You were just sleeping, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. And you're trying to get out, and you're trying to do everything you can to save yourself. Take your smartphone, if anybody out there has one, and go toss it in a little puddle of salt water and see what happens to it. It's done. And this wasn't a little puddle of seawater. This was a traumatic, incredible surge of seawater into this area. There's no way the kid's smartphone would have worked, number one, if this is what really happened. And number two, he used the WhatsApp. Why do sailors have the WhatsApp? Because you don't run up your cell minutes, you don't use up your data. Do you really think he would have cared at that point if this is what really happened? He wouldn't have just hit, if he was somehow magically able to get that cell phone open with seawater in rushing all around him, have it powered up. He wouldn't have thought, oh, contacts dad, call. No, wait, let's use the WhatsApp because I don't want to run up my minutes. Really? That's believable? Something stinks, folks. Something really stinks about this. And go back and look at that guy and look at what he wanted to say at the 24:55 minute time. He wanted to say something and he knew he couldn't. To get that kind of an impact, you would, and then he cut himself off. Now, it might be reaching, but I don't know, folks. This is a tough one to explain, knowing what we know now about the lies from the captain of the Crystal. So I'm going to leave it there, and I am going to let you folks do what you do best. Go down to the comments section and try to explain this one. So like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.